there, mathematicians. Welcome to class today. I'm Miss Barnes, and this lesson is for mathematicians in kindergarten and pre-kindergarten. Friends, today we are going to be finishing up our number study, and the last thing that we have to do is talk about adding numbers that have sums between 10 and 20. So today, as we get started, I'd like for you to grab a pencil, a marker, something to write with, and a piece of paper or something to write on. You're going to need those things as we work today. We'll work specifically with number bonds and counters. So you're going to see me work in this lesson with the counters, the squares that I have. If you don't have squares, that's okay. Just make sure you can find some materials that will help you count and that will help you combine groups. So take a moment now, go get all of your materials ready, and let's get ready to learn. So here's our first problem. Let's read it together. And remember, we start at the first capital letter and read all the way to the last punctuation the very first time. Here we go. Joe has 11 flowers. He picks 4 more. How many does he have? So think about that and think about the things that we need and the things that we know. Now we'll go back and we'll read sentence by sentence. And the next thing that I'm going to do is set up our number bond. So here on the bottom, I'm going to draw one circle at the top, and that's going to represent our whole. And then I'm also going to draw 2 circles connected by lines at the bottom. These are going to represent our parts. And this is called a number bond. Okay? So when we're reading the question, we need to think to ourselves, is this part of the answer or is this how many the answer is? Is this the sum? So as we're reading here, we're going to go back to the beginning and go sentence by sentence to see if we can fill out our number bond. Joe has 11 flowers. There's a period, so we're going to stop. Now I wonder, is 11 part of what I have, or is it the total of what I have? Well, that sentence doesn't really tell me, so let's keep reading. He picks 4 more. Oh, what does that mean? That means he has some in his hands, and then he goes back to get more. So does that mean 11 is a part, or is it our sum? Is it our whole? If you said it's a part, you're exactly correct. Great job. So Joe has 11 flowers. So I'm going to do a couple things here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to acknowledge that in our number bond. And we know that 11 is part of our sum. So I'm going to write 11 here on the left side. That represents our part. Then I'm also going to count 11 counters. So take a moment now and go ahead and count yours, and I'll count mine as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Great job! That's 11 counters, which represents the 11 flowers that Joe has. Next, we have to model this second sentence. So let's read it again. He picks 4 more. What does that mean, 4 more? That means that these counters represent the flowers he has and that we need to add another group of flowers. So here I have 4 counters. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm also going to write 4 here in the bottom to represent the other part we have. Now there are a couple things you can do here. If you already know the answer, then you can fill in the number bond and write the number sentence that tells this story. If you're not quite sure, then we're going to look over here and we're going to manipulate our counters to help us understand the answer. So we can count on from 11 to get to the answer. Or I'm going to move these 4 counters up to be in line. And then we're going to use a tool that we already know about, and that's the 10 frame. So I'm going to move these down. And can you see here that this looks exactly like a 10 frame. It's got 5 in this row and 5 in that row. So that means I have 10. Now this is another full row, and if you remember, full rows have how many? That's right, they have 5. So a full row has 5. Do you know how to count by 5s? Let's practice. So the first number we say is 5, because we know there are 5 in this row. 5, and then what comes after? 5 plus 5 is 10. So there's 5, 10, and then here 10 plus 5 is how many? 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 3 rows of 5 makes 15. 5, 10, 15. So does that mean that 11 plus 4 equals 15? It does, you're correct. So over here in my whole, I know that if my two parts are 11 and 4, my whole is 15. Now the last thing we are going to do is write a number sentence that tells this story. So there are 2 ways we can write this number sentence. The first way is the traditional way, and it's probably the way that you already know how. So we are going to write, I'm going to move my counters down. We are going to write 2 number sentences. The first is 11 plus 4 equals, do you remember the sum? What's the sum? That's right, it's 15. 11 plus 4 equals 15. Now there's another way to represent this story by flipping the equation around and writing the total first. So the other way you might see this is that 15 is equal to 11 plus 4. Great work on that problem, friends. Go ahead and reorganize your workspace, and we've got one more to try together. Okay, all cleaned up and ready for our second problem. I hope you are too. So remember, we start from the top and read all the way to the end. So we're going to start here, read our whole problem, and then we're going to talk about a different strategy to add these numbers together. Okay, so here we go. Kyle has 6 sodas or pop. He buys 12 more at the store. How many does he have now? So Kyle has 6 sodas, cans of soda at home, and then he goes to the store and he buys a new 12 pack. So he buys 12 more. How many does he have now? So the first thing we're going to talk about is our number bond, and I'm going to draw this one horizontal this time. Same idea, it just looks a little different. So this is a part, and this is a part. Still works the exact same way. So we'll put our parts in these 2 circles and our whole in this circle. Okay. Now let's talk about the problem that we have here. Kyle has 6 sodas. So I'm going to write that number down. I don't know what it means yet, but I do want to write it down. He buys 12 more at the store. So are 6 and 12 parts? Or does one of them represent the whole? He has 6. He buys 12 more. That must mean that these are parts. So I'm going to write 6 in the top part and 12 in the bottom part. These 2 numbers represent our parts, and we're going to calculate our whole. How many does he have now? So I know from the context of this problem that we're combining these 2 groups to get a new group. So that means I'm adding. So 6 plus 12 equals, and then we have to find the sum. But I'm sure you're thinking, Miss Barnes, I don't know how to add these numbers. That's okay. Let's think about something that you do know how to add, and then talk about how to use that to add this number sentence. So I bet you can tell me what 6 plus 2 is. What's 6 plus 2? If you don't know, you can count on your fingers. So 6, 7, 8. 6 plus 2 equals 8. So now let's look at what is different about 2 and 12. And I hope what you notice is that between 2 and 12, what we've done is we've added 10. So if we add 10 to an addend, and the other one stays the same, that means we add 10 to our sum. So if you don't know what 8 plus 10 is, that's okay, because you do know how to write that number. And we write that number with a 1 and an 8. What number is this? That's right, it's 18. Great job today, friends, working on combining groups and adding to 20. Next week, we finally get to start our shape study, and I can't wait to see you then. Get ready for science with Miss Schumacher.